This is more than just a podcast. It's a moment to stop, to breathe, to notice how you've been showing up. We were taught to push through, to stay strong, to hold it all together even when it cost us connection. But fatherhood was never meant to be survival. Here, we slow down before we raise our voice. We regulate before we correct. We learn that presence does more than pressure ever could. Because when a father changes how he shows up, the entire home shifts. Children feel safe instead of tense, partners feel supported instead of alone, and calm replaces chaos. Brothers, this is where awareness becomes action, where healing becomes leadership, where strength is measured by steadiness, not control. This is 15 Minutes with Dad, and this is the work, this is the responsibility, and this is how we change generations. Welcome back to another episode of 15 Minutes with Dad. In this series, we're building the calm parenting framework from the inside out. We've talked about emotional regulation, triggers, structure, connection, and now we're stepping into one of the most misunderstood parts of parenting, boundaries. Because a lot of parents hear the word boundary and immediately think punishment, restriction, control, or conflict. But healthy boundaries are about safety. And children actually feel calmer when the adults around them create clear, steady limits. So let's get into it. So one trend showing up constantly in parenting conversations right now is exhaustion around boundaries. Parents, they feel overwhelmed. They're tired of repeating themselves, tired of power struggles, tired of yelling, tired of feeling guilty for saying no. And many fathers especially are caught between two extremes. They either become overly authoritarian because that's how they were raised, or avoid boundaries completely because they don't want to become controlling parents. But children need boundaries. Research in development psychology consistently shows that children thrive when limits are clear, consistent, emotionally steady, predictable. Boundaries reduce anxiety because children understand where safety exists. Without boundaries, children often feel emotionally uncontained. And this is a constant balance, especially if you have a teenager like myself. There's a constant balance of these boundaries, and because they shift and they move sometimes, but it's like they still have to stay within the same confines, but they may expand a little bit or may become less stringent over time as your child show responsibility or like any of those things. So let's talk about why boundaries build emotional safety. A healthy boundary tells a child, I care enough about you to guide you. That's different from, I need to control you. Children feel safest when adults are calm and consistent, not emotionally unpredictable. But there's research from parenting and attachment studies that show that authoritative parenting, not authoritarian parenting, creates the healthiest long-term outcomes. There's a difference between authoritarian and authoritative. Authoritative means you have knowledge and you have experience in how the way that you're approaching your parenting, whereas authoritarians is like you have less knowledge, but trying to do the most in controlling or guiding the situation. Authoritative means you are more apt in the situation that you're trying to approach. So that means that warmth with structure, there's empathy with accountability, emotional safety with the leadership. And children raised with calm, consistent boundaries tend to develop stronger emotional regulation within themselves. They have higher confidence, even a healthier social behavior, and better problem-solving skills because boundaries help children organize their world. And I'll give you an anecdote from my life. Like, I feel like my daughter has gotten a lot better with her social interactions and her choice of friends and all of these different things as I done work in myself. And I work to regulate my emotions and understand how I interact in high intensity or high emotional situations. And being able to navigate that also allowed me to be more of an authoritative approach to helping her navigate her friendships and relationships. But there is a counter stance. Kids need strict discipline. That's the counter stance. Now let's talk honestly about the counter argument. So like a lot of people still believe fear creates respect. Strictness creates discipline, or harsh consequences create strong children. And many parents say, well, hell, I turned out fine. But one thing more adults are openly discussing now is how fear-based parenting affected them emotionally. Many high-functioning adults like myself still struggle with anxiety, emotional suppression, perfectionism, fear of failure, people-pleasing, and emotional avoidance. Not because my parents hated me, but because fear became the foundation of authority. And fear changes how children relate to their parents. So fear creates compliance, but if you create safety, that builds trust. And trust builds long-term influence. So for many fathers, boundaries become emotional, not intentional. Like we often set limits only as after frustration builds. We go from passive to explosive, 0 to 100 real quick, which means children experience boundaries as emotional reactions instead of predictable leadership. And this creates confusion because kids starts focusing on your mood instead of the actual boundary that is that's trying to be set. So calm authority sounds different. Calm authority says, no, the answer is still no. Even though I'm calm, the answer is still no. That consistency builds trust. Children trust adults who stay emotionally steady. So like my daughter, she always comes to me when she asks for something, and she always starts off with like, Dad. And it's in this tone that I know she's about to ask for something. It's always asking for something, probably to go somewhere. And I always start off with the word no, just to level set that it may definitely be a no. And a recent conversation we had was that she wanted to go on, for her senior year, she wanted to go on a trip with the band. And I was like, well, I got to spend a lot of money for this trip. Your junior year is looking a little rough right now. So you want me to say that I'm going like allow you to go to your senior trip just because you're a senior? And I was like, well, I'll sign it up for right now. But if your grades are terrible and you've been acting up in school, I guarantee it, when that trip comes around, you're not going. I don't care if I waste money. I will choose to waste money just to make sure that you understand that you are not entitled to my funds just because you are a senior. That does not mean that everything goes your way because you're a senior year. So I say that to say the answer was like a tentative yes. But if she acts up next year, it's a no. And I had to keep telling her. She was like, no, Dad, but it's my senior year. I was like, that's fine. It's still going to be a no. Like, I don't mind. And so like, I deal with that quite often because a teenager, she's almost 18. So she thinks like the world revolves around her and everything, which it does in some cases. But yeah, so let's talk about healthy boundaries and what they actually look like. And so healthy boundaries are clear, respectful, calm, consistent, and age appropriate. And they don't require long emotional lectures. A calm boundary sounds like, okay, I understand you're upset, but we're still leaving. And with my toddler, I do this all the time. Like it's always the case. If he wants to leave the park, I'm like, hey, look, I get that you're upset, but we still got to go. Oh, are you upset? He say, yeah. Okay, I understand. But we're going to have to still move this way. Or you're allowed to be frustrated. You're okay. But you're not allowed to hit anybody. Keep your hands to yourself. Or I'm not changing the boundary because the emotions got bigger. And that last part is important. Children test boundaries because they're learning stability. They're asking, can I trust this limit to stay consistent? Let me test it out. That's always going to be the case. And I mentioned earlier that boundaries evolve as children grow. So toddlers need environmental boundaries. Kids need clear expectations and predictable consequences. If you do this, you will have this, that happen. Preteens, the boundary becomes a little murky. Now it's a collaborative conversation. Like, hey, it seems like you would like to do this, but if you're going to do this, this is what I require of you. Teenagers need boundaries connected to trust, responsibility, and communication. If you're going to go this place, I need you to at least let me know. But at every stage, children still need leadership and not domination. They don't need emotional volatility. They need leadership. So I want to give you 5 practical tools for boundaries. So 1, set boundaries before the frustration. Don't wait until you're emotionally overloaded or wait until after you're done with all the emotional, turmoil within yourself and then go talk to. Regulate yourself and then have this conversation about what kind of boundary you want to set. And you want to keep the boundaries short and clear. Long explanations often become negotiations. And they'll start pushing, well, why can't I do this? Well, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? It is what it is. This is it. If you want to do that, this is the boundary. And it's important that you regulate yourself while enforcing these limits. Your calm matters more than your volume of your voice. But you should expect emotional reactions from kids. They're not going to accept it calmly. But children are allowed to dislike the boundaries, dislike the rules. They're not going to like it because it's going to feel like they're clamping. But if once you set your boundary and you say, okay, this is it. This is how you get to experience that thing or do the thing that you said you want to do. I expect this. And if they agree to it, then they will upkeep it. But you must stay consistent. And that's number 5. Inconsistency creates confusion and anxiety for your kids. So the aligned father understands something important. Boundaries are emotional leadership. A father who can stay calm while holding limits teaches their children safety, predictability, emotional regulation, and trust. Boundaries are not punishment. And this is how homes become calmer. Through steadiness. We want to avoid intimidation. But if there's one thing I want parents to remember from today, is this: children feel safest with adults who can hold boundaries without losing connection. Your calm authority matters. Your consistency matters, and boundaries rooted in emotional safety creates trust that lasts far beyond childhood. So in the next episode, we're talking about discipline. Real discipline. Not the punishment kind, real discipline. How to teach skills instead of using fear to control behavior. And until then, remember this: a boundary delivered calmly is often stronger than one delivered loudly. Before you move on, let's pause here, because growth doesn't happen in the listening. It happens in what you choose next. So you don't need to change everything. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. Stay present long enough to practice something different. So carry this into your home, into those small moments, the hard conversations, and the quiet decisions no one applauds. That's where fatherhood is built. And if something here resonated, let it become action. Let it become consistency, or become the way that you lead. Because this is how trust is formed. This is how safety is felt, and this is how generational change actually happens. And if this episode helps you, share it with another father who's trying to do better. And if you have a story, a win, or a lesson you're learning, email me at Lirec, Lirec, at 15minuteswithdad.com. That's Lirec at 15minuteswithdad.com. Because this work grows through shared experiences.